in that if you're worshipping the master of the lodge for that year that he occupies that position, worshipping, you should only worship one master, and that's exactly what Jesus told us to do in there. We can't serve two masters, so therefore we can't. For me, this is the way that I take this: is that you can't be in church and be in Freemasonry. They are incompatible, because if you're serving Christ, you have the light of the world in you. If you're in Freemasonry, you're crying out for more light. Well, I'm sorry, but if you've got the light of the world in you, you can't have any more light. And that's the master thing, that serving the two masters for me.
It seems so obvious when you put it down.
It is.
The other thing that we're really encouraging folks is, Lord, let the Lord investigate our lives. Let the Lord bring us up to see if some of these things are actually happening in our lives. And talking about darkness, we've got a couple of things on this that I want to move on to here. First of all, this is an email from somebody who wishes to remain anonymous. In my country, which is an African country, many people think Freemasonry is satanic. What do you say about that? On the spot, no way of getting out of it.
Okay then. Again, I made the point before about, I think if you're in anything which is taken out of a family home, then, and you're away from your family, that you're going out every night of the week, then I think Satan is at the heart of that, because he's trying to divide the family. Satan loves nothing more than to divide the family. There has been, and I've read many writings about what Albert Pike said, who was the Grand Sovereign Commander of Freemasonry some time ago, and he actually told his fellow Masons that people who were in the 30th degree and above were to be told the real secret of Freemasonry, which is...
Can I just so folks listening know we're aware of what we're talking about?
Yes.
The Grand Lodge of Britain would say officially there's only 3 degrees, but there is the Royal Arch, which will take you up to 33 degrees if you want to go that way, isn't it? And so you're talking up that way. Yeah,
the Royal Arch is the 4th degree, and then you go on beyond that from up there. Generally, you have to be invited to go into those lodges or elected to go into some of the higher degrees as well.
And how many go that way?
Not many.
Not many.
40% of all blue-collar Masons, that's the 3 degrees Masons, would go as far as those degrees. Would go higher than the 3 degrees. And most of them would only go into what's called the chapter, the Royal Arch, or maybe the Mark or the Mariners, which is a slightly higher degree.
Yes.
Much don't go beyond that, because then you've got to be starting elected into them.
Okay.
Because of my sort of professional singing background, I used to get invited into many other things.
Right.
Now, I turned down a lot of sort of higher degrees, and I don't know why, but I was starting to feel a bit uncomfortable. Once you get into the 30th degree, that's when you are told from that point on that the real secret of Freemasonry is a Luciferian doctrine. And so in that respect, yes, it is satanic.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that God spoke to me about in the very early stages of me being a Christian, when I was asking about Freemasonry, should I stay, should I go? There used to be a song about that, didn't there? He showed me, okay, parts of the ceremony. There's one part of the ceremony which says that you'll be regarding the 5 points of fellowship. Well, that's a 5-pointed star, and it's an upturned star, which they're talking about here, which is, you know, the satanic. Was it the pentagram? I think it's called. So that was just one of the things that I saw, and then God started to reveal other things that I hadn't seen before in the temple building when I went in that one time again, and I started to see things of the 33rd degree Masons. Now, I'd never been told that there was more than 5 or 6 or 7 degrees, really, and you know, most guys don't get told about them because they're elected into them.
Right.
In terms of it, is it satanic? Well, again, I think my answer at the beginning of that is anything which takes you away from Christ and takes you away from the family is satanic.
I think that's it. It does depend on the definition of satanic, isn't it? And I like that, because what you're saying there is anything that takes us away from the centrality of Christ is Satan seeking to do it. Absolutely. So as such as satanic. Yeah. Is it, as maybe this is asking, is it that all Masons worship Satan? No.
No.
But, as you say, there may be some in the higher degrees that do, but certainly others would not recognize it, that they are worshipping Satan,
that's
even
right.
if though they're not giving their allegiance to Christ.
Well, I think Albert Pike also said that when Freemasons come into the first, second and third degrees, that the guys who are in the higher degrees, it's like wearing in a new pair of shoes. And I think it's in the Shriner's degree, which is about the 31st degree, the password for that particular degree is Abaddon.
That's right.
So, king of demons. Well, if you're using terminology like that, you know, if you were using sort of Matthew, Mark, Luke or John or something, it might be slightly different.
Yes.
But Abaddon, well, doesn't that tell you something, really?
It does.
Yeah.
And I think what we do need to make clear is we mustn't jump to conclusions about the Mason down the road.
Yes.
They may not be up as high as that. They may not be worshipping Satan.
That's right.
But there are some, aren't there, that can really suffer. Now, the other thing we have that comes out here that I just want us to talk about a little about is people that say, well, I've had relatives or ancestors that were Freemasons, therefore I have problems in my life. My feeling about that is it is not necessarily always automatic, and we've got to be careful about jumping to conclusions, but it can be a problem.
Freemasonry, they ask you to break God's commandments, in effect. I mentioned something before about if this is done, if it's just in fun, then you're kneeling on your knees with your hand on the Holy Bible, saying to God, I bind myself to these vows under no such penalty other than death. Okay? So if that's been done in fun, you're saying that in front of God. You're making that vow before God.
Yes.
So therefore you're taking his name in vain if you're doing that in fun. If you're taking it seriously, then aren't you breaking the commandment about murder because you're committing yourself to murder by your own hand? Because of the type of oaths that they are. In the first degree, they cut their throats, your tongue's torn out by the roots and buried at the low water mark of the sea. The second degree, your heart's torn out. In the third degree, you're cut across your bowels, and your bowels are fed out to the beasts of the earth and so on. And people might ask, why didn't you see this earlier, like 11 years ago? But I was in so much rebellion, I didn't want to see it. I think that was the difference for me. Yeah.
We got a couple of emails here. I mean, when I want to, as we get to close program, we're getting quite a few emails coming through now, I want to talk a little bit as we get to the end about praying for people that are in Mason, especially if we've got family members in, etc. I want to deal with a little bit of this, but there's a couple here that basically are saying similar things. They're talking about people saying that Freemasons look after their own. So there's a couple of illustrations, and I won't go out because obviously we don't know if they're right or not, but of people that seem to get off scot-free because the judge was a Mason and the person in the box in the dock was a Mason. And of course we have had tremendous publicity back a few years ago on the whole police force of Mason and people having to sign to say they were Masons. So did you come across any of that? In other words, that there were unfair advantages, or were you aware of any of that because of people that were Masons? We did have a friend that had tremendous problems in getting on in the police force because they weren't a Mason.
Absolutely.
Are you aware of this, and is this again something which is a problem in Masonry?
And what Masons tend to say about this is if you're coming into Freemasonry to get that kind of thing out of it, you shouldn't be in it. However, that's the reason why most people join Freemasonry, to get something out of it. And you're also told, you'll only get out of it what you put into it. So therefore, I joined Freemasonry because I wanted to get on. I thought it would help me. Yeah. It didn't, I have to say. But I think with other people, I mean, I've known people who have got off scot-free with various things, driving under the influence of alcohol. Many times over, the police have escorted them back home and all of that kind of stuff, The judiciary system is riddled with Masons, and, I've heard many people in the lodge talking about how they got off with things when they went into court.